In fact, I always say it because he is someone who has talent. I mean, it's at Messi's level, without any exaggeration. If you had shown this photo back then and asked people which of these two young players would have the best chance of winning the Ballon d'Or, no one would have said Benzema because it was clear that Hatem Ben Arfa had exceptional talent.
C'est quelqu'un qui a talent, c'est du niveau de...
In 2013, Ben Arfa declared that he still dreamed of winning the Ballon d'Or. A year later, he joined Hull City on loan. However, Ben Arfa himself knew that he was in a critical situation, admitting that his career was like a game of Super Mario and that he had no credits left. It was his last life. A few matches later, the only game Hull City won was the one where Ben Arfa stayed on the bench. Hatem then lost his mind. One day, while heading to training, he left his house at full speed in his Mercedes and hit a parked car so violently that it ended up in someone's garden. But he still kept driving. And the craziest part is that it wasn't enough to make him realize that he wasn't in the right mental state to play football. The next day, he was in the starting lineup against Manchester United. 30 minutes into the match, his coach, Steve Bruce, started wondering if he was imagining things because he was almost sure that Ben Arfa hadn't moved since the start of the game. So he asked one of the analysts to check his stats, and what they found shocked everyone. Ben Arfa had covered less distance on the field than the team's goalkeeper. Steve Bruce immediately substituted Ben Arfa in the 35th minute and told him that he would never be accepted at Hull City again. Newcastle, the club that had loaned him, was so shocked by everything that had happened that they decided to terminate his contract on the spot, paying him compensation even though there were still 6 months left on his deal. But a few days later, no one had heard from him. Worried, they went to his house to see him, but they discovered that he had left the country, leaving all his belongings behind. Ben Arfa had completely disappeared, and for a while, the whole world thought that at 28, his career, and possibly his life, was over. You should know that at just 23 years old, this guy already had 15 titles to his name, more than legends like Maradona, Kaká, and Zidane had throughout their entire careers. A guy that Platini called the new Maradona, that Thierry Henry described as a football monster. A guy who had serious confrontations with Benzema and many others, but who was always said to be as technically gifted as Messi. But the question we all must ask is, what was really wrong in this guy's head for him not to be in the same league as some football legends who were just as technically gifted as him? It may seem strange, but Ben Arfa was never a normal guy, as we'll see in a moment. Hatem Ben Arfa grew up in Châtenay-Malabry, in a quiet neighborhood of Île-de-France. He had a relatively normal childhood until football completely changed his life. Gifted with a remarkable left foot and exceptional ball control, he quickly attracted attention. When he played in his neighborhood, neighbors would gather to watch him, and both teams would fight to have him on their side. He started with the ASV Châtenay-Malabry club at the age of 7, and his talent quickly became known throughout Île-de-France. So much so that at the age of 12, a year earlier than required, he joined the Clairefontaine training center. During his time at the academy, it wasn't the goals he scored that made him most famous, but rather an incident during the filming of a documentary at the academy. He lost his temper and was caught on camera fighting with Abu Dhabi. Before he even signed his first professional contract, everyone already knew he had anger issues, and this was just the beginning. But he was so talented that after 3 years at the academy, he was considered the best French talent of all time, with clubs like Ajax, Chelsea, Manchester United, and AC Milan pursuing him. PSG also tried to recruit him, but failed twice. The second time, it was money that influenced the course of the deal. His parents considered PSG's offer disrespectful to their son's talent. According to them, Paris had offered 10,000 euros, while Lyon offered 150,000 euros. So Lyon managed to bring him to their academy, where he played alongside a young striker named Karim Benzema. In their first year together, they led Lyon to the final of the French U16 championship. Ben Arfa scored despite their defeat. The following year, he teamed up with Samir Nasri and won the U17 European Championship. Ben Arfa scored in every match leading up to the final. After the Euro, both Benzema and Ben Arfa were promoted to Lyon's first team. Ben Arfa's speed and technical quality made him a perfect fit as a winger. He played for Lyon for almost his entire youth career. For 3 years, Ben Arfa was mainly a substitute who came on to change the course of games. He played a significant role in the 6 trophies Lyon won during that period. In 2007, Ben Arfa started the season with a brace that helped Lyon beat PSG 3-2, then scored 2 more goals a few days later against Stuttgart, dribbling past the entire defense to score the second goal from an almost impossible angle. This performance earned him his first national team call-up, and he scored his debut goal less than 30 minutes after coming on. Now, if you look at Ben Arfa's stats from his first 4 years, with relatively few goals and assists, you might think there was nothing extraordinary about him. And I would completely agree with you. But the interesting thing is that Ben Arfa didn't need to score many goals or provide many assists. He was almost always involved in most of Lyon's counterattacks and scoring opportunities. His presence relieved the midfield and disrupted the opposing defense every time he got the ball to attack or advance up the field, thanks to his exceptional dribbling ability. This influence was clear as Lyon won 4 consecutive league titles from 2004 to 2008, Ben Arfa's first 4 years as a professional. Imagine achieving that kind of success in football at just 21 years old. Ben Arfa had everything to succeed and stay at the top for many years, but he did what he knew best, creating disputes and conflicts. He had altercations with the coach, the president, and even Benzema. The club tried to calm things down by renewing his contract before the end of the season, but Ben Arfa ended up getting into a physical fight in the locker room. The situation became so tense that he forced his way out of the club. He even turned down offers from Arsenal, Manchester United, and Real Madrid, choosing instead to join Marseille for 12 million euros, making it the most expensive transfer in Marseille's history at the time. However, this didn't change anything. Just weeks after arriving, he was already fighting with Djibril Cissé. During a Champions League match against Liverpool, he argued with a teammate before the match even began. Despite scoring 6 goals and providing 4 assists in just 11 league games, he was dropped from the starting lineup and placed on the bench. When the coach called him to come on as a substitute, he refused. At Marseille, Ben Arfa was exceptional during his first 2 years, with performances similar to those in his last season at Lyon, but once again, his season went completely off track. He was benched while his former teammate Benzema joined Real Madrid alongside Ronaldo and Kaká. Ben Arfa was unable to leave Marseille and was forced to stay for another season under Didier Deschamps, who benched him multiple times despite Ben Arfa's good performances. In one stretch, he contributed to 5 goals in 7 matches and even won the February Player of the Month award. His impact on the team was clear, as he helped Marseille win the 2009 to 2010 Ligue 1 title, their first league championship in 18 years, as well as the Coupe de la Ligue the same year. Despite this, some fans believe Deschamps benched him intentionally so the coach could take the credit for Marseille's return to glory. But this is when things started to go downhill for Ben Arfa. Since his time at Lyon, many had noticed his behavioral changes on and off the field. He received more and more yellow cards and became increasingly angry with referees, opponents, and even his coach, Didier Deschamps. His impatience made him want to leave, and Marseille allowed him to look for a new club the following summer. Ben Arfa reached an agreement with Newcastle, who wanted to make him the star of the team. However, Marseille refused the transfer after Mamadou Niang left the club in 2010. Furious, Ben Arfa stormed into the office of Marseille president Jean-Claude Dacier. Before the president could even speak, Ben Arfa swept everything off his desk, papers, pens, and everything else. He said something like, "What you're doing is unacceptable. You promised me I could leave. Anyway, I'm not coming to training anymore. I'll never play for Marseille again." Marseille eventually relented and allowed him to leave. Ben Arfa joined Newcastle on loan with an option to buy. But just 4 matches later, Nigel de Jong tackled him so violently that he broke both his tibia and fibula, leaving his leg almost detached from his body. The tackle was so horrific that even the Dutch national team decided to suspend de Jong. You might think that Newcastle wouldn't want to keep Ben Arfa after such a long injury, right? Well, no. Even though the team's coach, Alan Pardew, initially opposed signing him, complaining to the board that they were signing a rebellious and difficult player, Ben Arfa's talent quickly silenced everyone. As one teammate put it, from the first training session, everyone was blown away. It was a joke. He was so good. When Ben Arfa scored a 25-meter winning goal in his second match, Newcastle had already decided to keep him. They paid the transfer fee, and 412 days later, after an entire season of absence, Ben Arfa returned to the starting lineup. Believe it or not, that season he became a club legend. In 2022, Ben Arfa signed with Lille, but an altercation with coach Jocelyn Gourvenec ended his time there. Gourvenec even stated that in his 34 years in football, he had never seen behavior like Ben Arfa's. Since then, Ben Arfa has remained without a club and has not officially announced his retirement. He seems to have moved on to other interests, becoming obsessed with paddle tennis, which he practices daily. Despite all of this, Ben Arfa remains beloved by fans for the magical and spectacular goals he scored. Many fans still love watching clips of his play style. However, he remains the most wasted talent in the history of French football. So if you love football like I do, you should watch the video on the screen now. You'll love it, promise.